Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here, and in this video we are going to be going over Eureka Pyros. Now I've done a few other videos on Eureka, one of which was a catch-up video, so if you're not caught up to Pyros and you want to get to learn a little bit about the previous zones of Eureka, be sure to check out that video. I also released a thoughts video on Pyros, but we're going to be taking a look at the most recent zone in a bit more detail instead of me just sharing my thoughts about it. Keep in mind that this zone released in patch 4.45 and that the final zone, Hydatos, will release sometime during the patch 4.5 patch series, likely towards March when part 2 of 4.5 is slated to drop. To enter Pyros, you must first finish the story in Pagos, which, while it's gotten easier, is probably the toughest thing about Pyros altogether, getting there. This is going to require you to get to Elemental level 35 and finish all of the quests in Pagos itself. I'd also advise you finish your Pagos step of the Relic before heading in here. As soon as both of those things are done, get a move on because unlike Pagos, you want to be in Pyros as soon as possible. At its core, Pyros is very similar to the previous Eureka zones. You'll gradually progress through a story as you gain elemental levels, and you'll be working on completing your Relic Weapon. Luckily, Pyros has made many quality of life changes over Pagos. While you will once again be restricted from using your mount until completing the level 50 quest, the Aetherites can be unlocked much earlier. The southmost one is unlocked at level 37, the north center one can be unlocked at 39, and the far northwest one can be unlocked at 41, giving you plenty of access to the map. Remember to use the map and tracker on the Eureka Tracker website in the description of the video to help navigate alongside those Aetherites, quests, and monsters. Pyros also establishes one of its new features right in the first quest with the Logos system. This system allows you to craft additional actions to use in combat that can completely change up how you approach various situations. To craft these actions, earn Logograms from various activities in Pyros, then take them to Drake to appraise them into Nemes. With these Nemes, use the Logos manipulator next to Drake to combine them into actual actions. Now you can hold up to 3 sets of Logos actions at a time. At first you'll only be able to craft 1 action per set, but after completing part of the level 37 quest, you'll unlock the ability to craft 2 actions at once. Keep in mind that crafting with 4 or more Nemes at once will reduce the chance of a successful craft below 100%, so the stronger the combination of actions, they are more difficult to make. You can, however, make 2 actions with a 100% chance of success. Just place 3 or less Nemes total into the Umbral and Astral arrays in the manipulator. There are 50 Logos actions total, and they range from basic functions to outright lunacy, and while actions do have limitations on which job can utilize them and how many times you can actually use said ability, they mostly allow you to transcend the boundaries of your role. Warrior with infinite cure cast or the ability to raise, a DPS with 50% more HP, more bonus defense combined with a provoke, turning them into a tank, a healer with 60% bonus damage pumping out huge DPS. All of these things are actually some of the more tame things you can do inside of Pyros, so a lot more is possible with the Logos actions. If you want a list of all the Logos actions, please check the description for a compiled list of crafting recipes courtesy of the Eureka Explorers Discord, which I would highly recommend joining if you have questions or want more information about Eureka, especially going into the 4th zone. They've done some incredible work, and you're going to hear me praise them probably a few times in this video. To make these Logos actions, though, you first need those Logograms we mentioned before. These are obtained in various ways that range from simple to infuriating. Conceptual Logograms are among the most common, dropping from non-adapted sprites equal to or above your level. Mitigative Logograms drop from adapted mobs of all levels, but at level 50 and above, adapted sprites instead drop inimical Logograms. I'd highly advise you killing adapted Ember sprites at level 43 or adapted Lightning sprites at level 46 to get a ton of mitigative Logograms before you worry about reaching level 50, as they are much less common at that point. I even de-level myself to 46 to grab mitigatives if I need them. Since leveling here is actually super fast, I don't mind it at all. The remaining Logograms are a bit more tedious to obtain. Fundamental Logograms come from EXP chains on mobs, with 1 being guaranteed on a 30 chain. Tactical Logograms only come from heat-warped lockboxes, which drop from mutated monsters. Curative Logograms drop from bronze and silver bunny chests. And finally, offensive and protective Logograms come from gold bunny chests, with offensives being 100% exclusive to them as of the making of this video. Now, for most of those things that I named, they can be obtained in other ways, other than those offensive logograms. They can drop sometimes from notorious monsters extremely rarely. Some of them can be gotten from different types of sprites. For example, fundamentals can be obtained from non-adapted thunder sprites. But offensives require the little bunnies, and with no promise of even getting a bunny from more populated instances, this might be the one bottleneck you find yourself struggling with. You might be wondering why that even matters. What if you don't care about the actions that come from that? Well, the Relic Weapon requires you to craft a minimum of 30 actions to complete the initial creation, on top of several Pyros crystals and Penthesilia flames, the final boss of this instance. You can make 30 actions fairly easily without the rarer logograms, but to obtain the new Eureka item level 380 armor, you need to craft all 50 actions at least once. Not to mention, silver and gold bunny chests drop a hairstyle, a mount, and some other goodies. Tacticals also drop some other things as well. Fortunate thing is that all logograms are sellable and purchasable off the market board. So now that you understand Logos and its importance, you know how the rest of this goes. Go around killing monsters, spawning notorious monsters to level up, complete the quests as they appear back in the base camp, and complete the weapon. Bunny Fates are worth decent EXP here too, so if you need logograms or just want the rewards, consider completing these frequently. Just don't neglect helping to spawn other stuff around the map. This happens a little too frequently in Pyros and is one of the drawbacks of the Bunny Fate being so desirable. One of my biggest things with Pyros is how solo friendly it can be thanks to those Logos actions. One of my most recommended things to do is to solo level on sprites if you can't find parties. If you have the Reflect Logos action, you can just spam it to prevent them from ever doing damage to you and make them kill themselves. Reflect takes neems from mitigative, curative, and protective logograms in order to craft. If you have spare gil, you might consider grabbing some of these really early on to enable this solo option as quickly as possible. This will net you tons of logograms because not only do sprites drop the logograms we mentioned above, but they drop multiples of them that goes up as you increase your chain. And on top of that, the EXP is great from these, especially if you kill those white flames when you reach like level 42, 43. You can kill like 6 of those things at once with the Reflect Logos action as long as you don't let them actually land any hits. Also, consider just killing mobs to spawn notorious monsters. You're going to need the Pyros crystals anyway. I usually just aimed for monsters equal to my level to spawn NMs that were 5 levels under me. This restricts you from being able to really do this until you get to level 40 plus, since that's the lowest level monster that does spawn notorious monsters. Also, I just teamed up with others to spawn NMs. It's super commonplace here and it's way less annoying than it is in the previous zones, and the NM spawn rates are way higher to boot. I will say, one of the things Pyros still doesn't have that I think all of Eureka could use is a level syncing option for just casually killing monsters. At this point, I don't think it's worth making it, but please, if you ever do anything like this again, please make a level sync option for everything. By the time you finish your initial Relic Weapon, you'll need 650 Pyros crystals and 5 of those Penthesilia flames. However, the finished Pyros Relic, you might notice, has no stats on it other than main stats. This is where step 2 of your Relic grind in Pyros begins, Light. Again, once you finish crafting the weapon, Drake and Geralt will outfit you with a Pyros kettle that is similar to your Pagos one. The forge for this zone is all the way in the north, but the goal with this light step is a bit different. Every 2 crystals you take back to the contraption next to Geralt, named the Neem Workstation, it will allow you to roll random stats on a weapon that you have completed the Pyro step for, and you'll be gambling on your relic stats over and over again until you get something you like. Initially, you'll only notice a single line appear on the list, usually with some pathetic number. Don't worry about what stats you get at this point. You'll need to constantly hand in crystals until more lines appear on this list, maxing out at 5 lines. Once you have 5 lines of stats appearing, you just need to re-roll with those 2 crystals until you get something akin to your desired stats. There are usually a few parameters you want to look at to know, I should probably stop now. For one, whatever your best stat is, you'll obviously want. For a lot of us, that's crit, but it's not the only factor. Aiming for the minimum of 685 substats is another thing to consider, since that is the maximum number of substats available on the current weapons from the final Savage encounter. Getting over that means that, under the assumption that we actually get to keep our stats going into the next increase, that it will in every way be better than the Savage weapon by the end of the expansion. The maximum you can roll is 1,000 substats, and that's super rare. I got one with 200 crit, which is 120 more than the Monk Omega weapon can possibly have, and it totaled 880 substats across the remaining direct hit and determination. I've seen warriors and black mages with over 700 points in just crit. So light grind to your heart's content until you get what you want. Little tidbit for paladins, unfortunately you're going to have to unlock the 5 lines on both your sword and your shield separately. I think it's a little bit of an oversight that you have to do this as opposed to just doing them both at the same time. So I've got nothing except I'm sorry to say to you. And as for the light grinding itself, it's similar here as it is in Pagos, though again the Logos actions and the quality of life Pyros received helps a lot. With faster NM spawns, they become much better options for strictly light grinding, especially Escalafos and Ducks, 2 NMs with very high light rewards. Sprites, dragons, and undead all have high light rewards if you just chain them and maybe get some lucky procs. My favorite thing to do is reflect grinding though. You can do this solo on sprites level 50 plus, or even in a party. There's also a fancy trick, though really only 1 or 2 groups can do this strat per instance. I wanted this video out before it got posted on Reddit, but somebody posted it on Reddit, so I might as well just link that for a text version of this description. So the Blood Glider mobs are one of the level 55 mobs in the zone. They're normally used to spawn the final boss during heatwave weather. However, there are a bunch of them along the far eastern side of the map, and during Umbral Wind weather, level 55 wind sprites spawn here too. Blood Gliders have a breath attack that can be reflected, so usually you'll have a tank without reflect pull, while 3 or more party members use reflect to bounce the breath back at the Blood Glider, causing it to burn itself to death. The initial damage from the breath is pretty high, but it also puts a nasty dot on them. The more people you have, you could just one-shot the Blood Glider. You can increase this reflect damage by de-leveling yourself to 49 deliberately, at least making sure the tank can survive, and also taking off all of your gear if you're one of the people reflecting the damage back. Reflect actually snapshots the damage it would deal to the player, calculates that it's reflected, and bounces that exact damage back. So whenever you're doing anything reflect related, take off all your armor, you just don't really have any room to screw up. Now that you understand all that reflect nonsense, killing those Blood Gliders, great. But then every 5 chains, chain 5, 10, 15, etc., you'll want to reflect kill a wind sprite to make sure that you can reap in all that juicy light. These sprites always adapt, so when you do this, you pretty much guarantee either a high amount of feeble light or a low amount of gentle light, depending on which chain it actually is. So would highly recommend it, as you can earn so many bars of light in even a single Umbral Wind weather, and if you get 2 in a row, you're probably gonna have to go stop at the forge in order to actually make room for all these light crystals. But the problem is this only works during Umbral Wind, and there aren't a lot of sprites, so expect this method to be crowded now that more and more people are learning about it. Also, please remember, only monsters level 50 plus give light in Pyros, so don't try farming light on anything under level 50. So you know how to farm light, how the relic stat works, how Logos actions work. There's one thing left though, your 6th Magicite. This is a very optional side quest in Pyros to acquire a 6th Magicite to use in your Magia board. Simply put, bring 3 items to the Expedition Engineer in Geralt's workshop. Lane Brix's dice, Yin Yang's tissue, and a Skull's claw. These are just 3 NMs in the zone, but the drop rate isn't very high. I wouldn't consider this mandatory, but it is nice to have a goal while you're working on light crystals. You can also buy the items from the market board, but expect that Skull's Claw to be on the pricier side. If you do obtain the 6th Magicite, I'd highly recommend running either 4 Magicite in offense and 2 in defense, or vice versa if you're a tank. 4 Magicites provides an 88% benefit in that element, while the other 2 will provide a 52% boost. So with a 4-2 setup, you'd be doing 88% more damage on enemies and taking 52% less damage, assuming your Magia board is aligned when battling. Tanks, on the other hand, lose 12% defense in favor of a very nice offensive boost. Even if you run 5 and 1 like this, the added offense and defense is pretty nice. So this about covers the essentials of Pyros, but there's definitely a few things I can add in here. First, there are a lot of choke points, so knowing enemy aggro types helps a lot. I detailed this aspect of my catching up to Eureka video, so I'll include a timestamp of that explanation in the description of this one. There's a lot of links down there, but if you know what you're looking for, you'll find it. Second, don't be as afraid of death here. You heard me mention earlier that I deliberately de-level sometimes to make reflect strats deal more damage, or to access lower level mobs for Logograms. Once unlocking your mount at level 50 from the level 50 quest, you can keep using it even if you de-level. So while I do recommend shouting for raises and assisting others, of course, don't be afraid to lose some EXP here occasionally. It's super quick to get back. Finally, I can't stretch this enough. I heavily advise keeping tabs on that Eureka Explorers Discord. I understand we only have one zone left, but they are a group of hardworking players who have come together when these new Eureka zones release to uncover all the secrets and compile them for your use. It's not a secret that a lot of people don't like Eureka. I especially didn't like Pagos, but having this kind of resource just eases your mind so much to not have to worry about all the little details because they've gone out of their way to figure everything out. Almost all the information in this video, if it wasn't discovered from first-hand experience when Pyros came out, it was compiled by them in their efforts. And even if I did discover it, they still compiled it. It doesn't matter. They will be invaluable in Hydatos especially, where Yoshida has said Logos actions will be much more vital to completing the public dungeon there. So do yourself a favor, join them, and keep your eye on them when Hydatos comes out. Alright, and that's going to be a wrap for my video on Eureka Pyros. I'm sure there are tons of other little tips, people with Logos action stuff they'd love to tell you about. I can think of a few off the top of my head, but I'll keep them out of the video. Be sure to post some of your things regarding Logos or any other additional advice you may have for people in the comment section of the video below, because any amount of resources to make Eureka go by smoother, it's a welcome resource. Anyway, thank you again for watching, and I will see all of you next time. We'll talk about Hydatos in a few months. So if you don't watch anything else on my channel, I'll see you then. Until then, take care.